I constantly have the question in my mind of, Lord, what do you want to hear today? The songs that we choose as a team to sing that particular Sunday morning, we're putting words in their mouth to communicate to the Lord. The angels sing continually. There's always worship going on before the throne that never stops. And as we come and gather, it's like we get to jump in that river and in that flow of what's happening all the time.
There's a difference between a song, biblical and catchy, and one that this one's inspired.
I have really noticed just this hunger for the simplicity of Jesus again. It's like it kind of cycles back around to
Jesus, King Jesus, holy glory,
Now the veil is ripped and now there's access to his heart. And I'm just sitting there having this explanation, weeping. Oh my gosh, he's so right here. He's so close. She's like, why are you crying?
Are you okay, Mom?
Like,
are you okay?
Like, he tore the veil.
Our heart is not that you become like me, but that you become who God created you to be.
When they lead, they become leaders everywhere they go.
If he's talking to you in your waking hours, why would he not talk to you when you slumber?
For me, for so long, I prayed the Lord would send me as a missionary to Yellowstone. He's like, I'd be worried for you. I miss Lamentations. So, Book of Ephesians.
Right.
Hey, friends and family, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Aleph After Hours. Today is a super exciting episode because we have Lindi Griffith with us here in the office. And it's exciting because Lindi is our worship pastor. She teaches at the Aleph School of Ministry. You teach our worship class. You are a mother of two.
Yep.
And soon to be 3.
Not I know of.
Okay.
Let me know.
Mama to Eden and Shiloh, wife to Joseph, an amazing family, and a super integral part of our church here at Christian Center. So we have been waiting to have you on to talk about all things worship, family, your life story, because we're so interested. Pastor Tim talks about you the whole all the time. He mentions that you grew up in the church, so we kind of want to hear a little bit about that, and just worship in general, and kind of the season we're coming into. We've been talking about, at least in August and September, talking about Tabernacle of David, and so I think it's a great time to have you in and talk with you about what that means.
Yeah.
And so thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Super excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking time away from your family, so we're grateful.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
The busy schedule with kids.
It is. It's very full. It's very hands-on.
It is, yeah.
When the kids are little, it's very hands-on, but it's very fun.
It's fun and rewarding.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Fun and rewarding.
Grow with them, kind of.
So, well, we'll just jump right in, Lindi. Tell us, I kind of explained a little bit about what you do up here, but tell us kind of what that all looks like. What does it look like to be a worship pastor? Yeah.
So I get the privilege. I always feel like it's a privilege. It's an honor to do what I get to do, and to do it in a vocational capacity. I always feel like that's an honor to do that. And so I get to pastor the worship department here at Christian Center, and which we have had a very small worship department at times and a very large worship department. And so so you get to just kind of ebb and flow with the people that the Lord brings, and the ones that he brings for you to steward and pastor. And so it's a privilege and a joy. So so I've been the worship pastor here for almost 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
In a full-time capacity. And but yeah, like you said, I've been part of the church since I was little. My parents came here when I was a baby. They were moved to Shreveport and were looking for a church, and visited here and just fell in love with it and stayed.
And where'd they move from?
From Paris, actually.
Wow.
Where I was born.
From Paris to Shreveport.
Paris, Texas. Yes.
Oh. I was thinking Paris, France.
I know.
Well, because your mom goes to Europe so much.
My mom is actually from Belgium.
Yeah, they're there right now, aren't they?
They
I
are
saw
there
your
right
dad
now.
post with the Belgian waffle.
Yes, my mom is Belgian. She is European.
Okay.
So that's why I can play that joke, because it's actually believable. But no, it was Paris, Texas.
Okay.
Where I was born.
Still Paris.
Yes, still Paris. So my dad worked for the newspaper. He's in journalism. And so he moved here to work for the Shreveport Times, the local newspaper here, when I was a baby. And so they found Christian Center and just stayed. And so I grew up here and have just always had a love for the Lord, a love for the things of the Lord, the presence of the Lord. I was a child during the Brownsville revival time in the mid-90s.
How old were you during?
So I was about 9 or 10.
So old enough to remember.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
Brownsville. Okay.
Yeah. And old enough for it to be very impactful on my life and my just journey with the Lord. Like, I remember just sweet times with the Lord, and where you can, I remember experiencing the Lord, like in a physical way, smelling fragrances of the Lord and feeling him in my body, and like, weeping uncontrollably and having moments of joy and just laughter, that you can't explain, and all those things. And I think as a child at that age, it's very like, I don't know, like I said, it's just very impactful to me and memorable to me, and kind of helped shape.
Did you know what was like, I mean, you're 9 and 10. I mean, did you know what's going on, or are you like, what is this? Or did you kind of intuitively know this is the Lord? A
little of both. I mean, I was here with my family and here with, we were all sort of like in this like, wow, sort of like the Lord is here and he comes when we gather in this tangible sort of way. All sort of experiencing that together, and I'm seeing other people experience the Lord in that way, and then I feel it myself, and it's like, okay, this is real. Like I know this is real. Like I'm experiencing this, and yeah, there was an awareness of this is the Lord, and like this is what He feels like, and that's what I mean. I guess that's kind of like carried through, my whole journey with the Lord. It was just pivotal
from a young age.
Yeah. Where you experience just a tangible presence of the Lord.
When we were talking about this before the cameras were rolling about our children are very similar in age, and so having conversations with them about these things. Even this week, on Wednesday, our daughter goes to school and she has her chapel. So I was trying to, again, explain this presence of the Lord. Yeah. And I was like, you can experience the Lord. Because we were talking about worship and things like that. Yeah. And so, she's like, well, what is that like? And I said, well, it could be anything. And so she goes, well, sometimes I cry in chapel and I get a little shy and embarrassed. And I was like, well, I said that it could be a manifestation of the Lord. So then you're having to explain the difference between tears of sorrow and tears of just like gratefulness and tears of like beauty. And so for her, tears are, something mean or bad happened. And so she doesn't understand why. Yeah. She's crying. So, but, a 9 and 10-year-old, she's 6, but, at 9 and 10, you're a little more cognizant of that. Yeah. And it marks you. Oh, for sure. In a powerful way.
Yeah, it was a very marking period of my life. And about that time, I started taking piano lessons, and sort of on a whim. My mom just said, do you want to take them? And I was sure, I guess. And it was like this accidental.
Sure, I guess. That sure, I guess led to like destiny, right?
I was in gymnastics lessons, which the Olympics had just happened. And I was like, yes, I'm going to go to the Olympics. Let's do gymnastics. Well, that clearly did not work out. And so Mom's like, well, we can't afford to do both. Do you want to do gymnastics or piano? Well, I guess I'll switch to piano because my Olympic dream's not happening. So I switched to piano and discovered the passion of my life and the passion of my heart, and fell in love with it, and took lessons for years, and then did a lot of, played a lot by ear. And I was trained by the worship leader who was here before me.
And he was apparently a phenomenal.
Well, actually the one even before that. Okay. And she was very pivotal to me. Yeah. She taught me how to play worship music, where my previous piano teachers are more classical. Yeah, which is great too, can provide a great foundation. But once I started learning how to play the worship songs that I heard down in Brownsville, and I was able to play those on piano and worship with them at home in my room, that opened a whole new thing for me of like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so I kept pursuing that. I started leading we developed a little like kids worship team at that point. And so there's, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 of us. I was the oldest one. So I guess I got to kind of like, lead them just because I happened to be older, and played the keys, and we sang songs together. But it was some really powerful, sweet moments of worship with the Lord in that setting and with the kids. Yeah. Worshiping with kids is such a beautiful thing. And so I did that for a while, and then played in the youth band for a while. Spent years there, and I would serve on the adult team as well. And I did go to college. I went to a secular college for an education degree, which is I've never used, but But during those college days, I always wanted to come back on the weekends. I was only an hour away, so I wanted to come home just to be here. Because I tried different churches in the town where I was and just never.
It's not the same.
Yeah, no, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Just felt super connected here, and so got to come back, be part of worship on the weekends, and served there. Served on that team for years, until I was asked to lead the team when that position opened up, which I had no idea that was going to happen. And so, so I don't know. It's just funny.
Wow.
The Lord just directs your steps.
So, I mean, you have these powerful encounters when you're 9 and 10 with the Brownsville revival going on. You just happen to say, yeah, sure, to your destiny of learning piano. Right? I like that because I think God knows the yes, sure answers.
Absolutely.
That can guide you and lead you.
Absolutely.
But like when you first grasped a hold of worship, and I think this is important, for you it was never really about, hey, I'm going to lead and play on the team. It was more that personal, I just want the presence of the Lord and I want to worship. And I mean, I think, that's important for anyone who wants to get into it to understand, like, it's got to be fueled out of something that you do in your private time.
Absolutely.
If you don't do it in your private time, then even when you do it publicly, it's not going to be the depth that it would be. It's just going to be, shallow. And there's so many people who they look at it as, hey, we just got to do the performance, right?
Right.
And I think that's an important thing. Like, how do you balance that with, 17 years doing this, hired on staff as the pastor, not, and then all the years before you did it. So how do you balance, like, this is like my devotional life, like this is what I long to do with the Lord, and then this is also work. How does that tension happen?
Yes.
The easy questions, right? These are the easy questions.
Yes. I think my concept and my definition maybe of worship has expanded as I've grown through different seasons of my life. And like I said, you said now I'm married and I'm a mom. Yes, worship still looks like music, and it still looks like moments where I can sit before the Lord with my piano and just sing. But there's a lot of moments that worship looks like feeding my kids. Worship looks like serving my husband, serving my family. Worship looks like me praying in the car because it's the only time that I'm alone, or in the shower, or before I go to bed, because it's the only moment where there's not a person on top of me.
The life of a mom,
a little kid hanging on you. So it looks different. When I was younger, before I was married, I would spend, an hour in my room, 11 o'clock at night. There's something about 11 o'clock midnight where it always just hit me, songwriting and worship. And I would just sit there and sing and worship. And that's obviously a lot harder for me now. I'm exhausted at 10 o'clock instead. And, you just have different responsibilities. And I kind of wrestled with that. I think some of like, gosh, I just don't, like, I can't do what I did before. Like I can't, because your life changes and your different things change. And the Lord just, he reminded me that, like, hey, there are different seasons of your life, and I will meet you in those places where you are in your life.
Yes.
And
he understands, right?
Yeah, exactly. And and I've talked before about the month of Elul, which it is the month of Elul, as we're sitting here recording this, where it's the season where the king is in the field, and it's the season like where he's near to you. And my birthday's in August, so my birthday falls in the month of Elul. And so it was just this sweet picture of the Lord being like, hey, like, you were birthed in this season of nearness to me, and I will meet you where you are. I will meet you in your field. Yeah. I'm the king who comes to meet you in the midst of doing what you're doing. And it doesn't mean that there's not times where where I need to steal away from that and just sit in front of my piano and worship and sing. And I do. But the Lord meets you where you are, and you can worship in all things. And I talk about that even with my kids, like, hey, obedience is worship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When you say yes to doing the thing that someone's asked you to do, hey, this is a moment where you get to choose to worship right now. Your flesh doesn't want to, but you get to choose. And all these different ways that worship looks like. It's not only music, And so, so I hope that answers your question.
Well, but as a parent, again, I always tell the young people, the single people, I said, you have more time right now with the Lord than you'll ever have
I know.
in your life.
People
That's
told
it.
me that.
Take advantage of it.
I know. I didn't believe them.
And take it, and then you get married, and it's like, okay, you have less, but you still have more time
Yeah,
now than you
know.
will when you have kids.
know.
Then you have kids, and you know, a lot of people go through that struggle.
Yeah.
And what happens is your time with the Lord has to change, and you understand
does.
that, oh, well, He doesn't just meet me in my room in a closet by myself.
Yeah.
He'll meet me doing the dishes with
Absolutely.
a kid pulling at your pants.
Absolutely.
Or he'll
Or in
meet,
a conversation with
Yeah.
my kid, like we're talking, I was talking with Shiloh about like, okay, when the Lord was crucified and that veil, did you know that the veil in the temple, there was a veil there and it ripped from top to bottom when he was crucified. Do you know why it did that? She's like, no, why? I'm like, because there's this point of access now, the veil is ripped and now there's access to his heart. And I'm just sitting there having this explanation, like conversation with her. And I'm like, literally like weeping, like thinking about, oh my gosh, like he's so right here, he's so close, and she's like, why are you crying?
Are you okay,
and
Mom?
I'm
Mom,
like,
are you okay?
like he tore the veil. Like it just literally, I literally can't even like think about it without crying. And it's just this accidental moment of like, hey, I'm right here, I'm so close to you, I'm right where you are, and again, it's just a beautiful picture. The Lord just meets you.
I think even Camila, my wife, has you just go into season with kids, and but the Lord is so kind and gracious, and He's so loving, and He's like, look, I'll meet you doing laundry. I'll meet you, cooking. I'll meet you trying to get your kids dressed,
Oh yeah.
I'll meet you. And so it's like those times shift and change. And I think what happens is you have to develop a lifestyle of worship rather than just those moments that you say, hey, I'm going to go worship.
Yeah.
Your whole life becomes worship because it just is about that constant communication and connection with Him where you let yourself be overwhelmed by His goodness, His graciousness, His love and affection, and everything else. And it's produced in life, like you were saying earlier. It expands. Your idea of worship expands. So, as a pastor on staff as well, it's on Sunday mornings. There's a lot of times like I'm in worship and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, Lord, we're about to get in the zone, right? And then, my little girl or my little boy comes up and says, Daddy, I got to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And it's like, okay,
Always.
all right, let's go. And,
Right.
And as I think, you grow into it and you realize that the Lord He would rather you focus on your kids, raise your kids, pour into your kids, take the time with your kids, than neglect that, withdraw into your closet and spend hours and hours and hours there.
I know. I love what you were talking about on Sunday about how like living your relationship with the Lord in front of your kids. And I had no idea. Like I'll read my Bible first thing in the morning, so it doesn't happen first thing in the morning. It never happens.
Yeah.
So I'll wake up and get my coffee and read my Bible, and my kids will come out. They'll wake up and they'll come out and they'll see me every day in that chair reading my Bible.
Yep.
And I didn't do it, for that reason. I do it because I want to read and I want to, have time with the Lord before the day starts. And she'll go get her little Bible and she'll sit right there with me and read her little kid Bible or whatever with me. And she'll ask about the Bible and want to, like, Mom, we didn't read the Bible today. Of course, she can't read. She's 5 and she's 4, the other one's 4. So they can't really read yet, but they'll sit there and they'll look at the words just like I do. Okay, what are we reading today, Mom? Okay, well, find Deuteronomy and find chapter 14. And, and so we talk about this. And I'll read a little passage of what I'm reading, but it just like blew my mind. It seems so obvious, but it just blew my mind of like, golly, just the choices, that we make as parents to pursue the Lord in our daily life. They literally watch that and then they want to mimic that. Yeah. And so the choices that we make to live our relationship with the Lord in front of them like that and include them and pray out loud in the car or in the house instead of praying internally all the time. I've intentionally tried to, pray out loud. Okay, let's pray about this. Let's talk about this. So they can both hear me praying all the time.
Yeah, they see it and it becomes like, I see it. I don't just hear my parents tell me this, but I see them living it.
Yeah.
And it's before last Sunday, I was talking with Camila about, just the importance of parents and growing up. And she grew up in a household where her dad is very, and he still is very involved in her mom. Yeah. But she was like, look, I just remember my dad. And you go over there, even now when we go to visit and stay down there for weeks or whatever, every day, have his Bible out. He'll be reading it, writing, you see it. But she says, I remember waking up sometimes at 2 a.m. and walking out to go get water, and my dad would be out there praying. I mean, the impact that has
Wow.
on your life, right? You told me
Yeah.
a story that she came out. Your dad was on his knees praying in front of the couch, and she walks up and she goes, "Daddy," he goes, "Oh," scared the heck out of him. but the thing is she sees that, and it builds something in you as a child, or it builds something in your children if you allow them to see that instead of trying to say, "Hey, let me do my mom and dad things, get you guys in bed or whatever, and then let me do this in private because I need my time."
Yeah.
Learning how to find God in the chaos of family is one of the growth factors of becoming a parent,
Absolutely.
right? So on the same line as that, being intentional with your kids, right? So intentionally letting them see your personal life with the Lord, but then being intentional.
Yeah.
So like with worship, what is a way that you guys are like intentional with Shiloh and Eden when it comes to worship? Like, what do you guys do?
We've done a variety of things. We've done, we just call it family time. And we would try to do that on Sunday evenings together and kind of make it a weekly thing. And I would sit at the keyboard and do like a worship song like we would do here at church on Sunday. Not like, I'd do some, kids songs, but I would do some like grown-up songs or whatever. And, they're young, and this was even like a year ago that we started doing this, so even younger. So, the attention span is very short. So they would be, speaking of chaos, it would be a little wild because they would be running around, but also you can model what worship looks like for a child. Hey, like raising your hands is something biblical, like lift your hands before the Lord, clapping, dancing, whatever. But then there's also a thing of, I don't want to say, hey, you have to do this right now because this is the only way worship can look right now.
Yes.
I know we're at home, so I give my kids a lot of freedom of like, as long as they're not hurting each other or hurting like the house or destroying something, then I just kind of let it happen. And it's wild, and I'm singing and they're running around, and and my husband's playing the djembe, and that's our family worship time. And I'm like, when we first started, it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But we just kind of kept doing it. And so we did that for a while. And then now Shiloh and Eden, both of them have really taken an interest to piano themselves, where they want to play. And so I'm working with them. I'm playing simple little things. And that's been really sweet to see them play and see them sing. We'll sing together, and or I'll play guitar. And again, they'll just kind of run around. And, and I had to kind of get out of my box of, is this even like doing anything? They're literally just running around the room. And they're singing, but they're not doing what I think they should do during worship time. Like, where's your beautiful flowy dance? Like, why are you like,
can relate.
Are you on your head right now? Like we're doing worship time. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, they're in the environment all the time, and or on a weekly basis, and they're seeing us worship together as a family at home. And knowing that it's not all in a church setting, it's not all corporate, I mean, that's one topic that I teach in the class, is the difference between your personal worship time and your congregational corporate worship time. Yeah. How that they are different from one another, and they're not interchangeable in the sense, and you touched on that at the beginning when we first started, of that you can't only have corporate congregational worship. You have to have the personal moments too. And you can't, otherwise you come into that congregational setting just so desperate for the personal connection with the Lord that it can take away. If you're a worship leader, if you're in a leadership position, it can really, it can just kind of put you in a bind. It's like you need both. And, but that, it looks different. Like we're saying, it looks different.
Well, it does. And it is a, it's a challenge because, like you just said, this isn't what I wished it looked like. Yeah. Because, you're running around. My boy has his little stuffed alligator, and he's like, roar, and like, okay.
All the time.
What do we, well, exactly, Lord, are we even doing anything? And then you are, and as they get older, they get used to, okay, just like, with us praying before meals, when we first started, I mean, their attention span's like 5 seconds. And so now, much better. Yeah. Much better. But it is like that balance between, I'm not about to command you and be like, you're going to do this and this and this, because then they're like, this isn't I don't want this. I don't want to do this. I'm being forced into something, right?
Yeah.
But then also trying to kind of shepherd them in and be like, well, yeah, okay, well, let's come and do this, and let's not do that. No, don't tackle your sister, don't pull your brother's hair, whatever, and trying to do it, but understanding that the mercy and grace of the Lord is there, and it's so important about just modeling, like, hey, we're gonna take the time and do this as a family, together,
Definitely. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different ways. I think a lot of it is for maybe families who are listening to help them get ideas as well of, hey, what can we do? And it might just be playing a song on YouTube.
Sure.
I think for me, you go through these moments where you're like, is this even doing anything in my child? And then one day my boy was walking around and he was like, his name is G. I'm like, okay, yeah. He's singing the song. It's working. It's working. So
I know. We do role playing too, which my kids love that. Like, okay, we're going to role play Esther, and you be Esther. Dad's going to be Mordecai. You're going to be this character, whatever. And then one of us adults will sit there and read the actual scripture. I'm like, okay, now Esther, you say this, da-da-da. And so she says the lines, of course, you got to get all dressed up and do the whole deal.
Yeah.
But that really helps them understand the story,
it makes it
too.
fun, too. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
understanding the story. They're, you're bringing creativity into
For sure.
it. For them, they probably love it. They're like,
and Dad's dressed up with all his Mordecai stuff and, whatever. They're like, yeah, can we do family time every day? They love it. So that's a great way to bring little kids into Bible stories.
The creativity. Yeah, my kids, they love stories. I mean, and so at night, a lot of times it's a story. It's a story. And so I just pick one and tell it, in a way it keeps their attention and they can relate to. Like last week, I was laying in bed telling the story of David and how he was a shepherd. Yeah. And, I'm sitting there, I'm telling the story, and I'm like, David was a shepherd. And my boy Josh was like, well, how old was he? And I was like, well, I don't know. He was like, I don't know, like, he was because he's young, he's 4, and so I'm like, well, he was a little boy, and I was like, he's like 10 or 11 or 12, and he's like, oh, so he's a big boy, and I'm like, well, sure, but he's a little boy, and he's like, okay, well, how many years? And I was like, I don't know exactly. How many sheep did he have, Dad? Well, when he left to go to the military camp, who watched the sheep? And so he's like, so worried about the sheep, and I'm like, we'll get back to that, And so, but they love stories.
Yeah, they do.
And so, but part of creating the atmosphere in your family, the discipling your kids, worship things. I mean, these are, I think, for the Lord, it's such a pleasing thing to Him to see. Yeah. And a lot of times we can think, hey, I gotta be having those intense moments, and that's what's going to please Him. But I think, as your parent, He's more pleased with you wrestling with the chaos, and to disciple your kids, than if you just said, hey, y'all go to bed, do your thing. We're going to go do our worship time or our private time. Yeah. But, then there are moments, like you said, where you do just have to get away and have your solitude with the Lord. I mean, you see that with Jesus pulling away from the disciples and just having a time to pray and really seek the Lord on things.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. It's a both and. It's the expansion of the definition.
Yes.
I keep saying.
Yes. So family is one aspect. This is what family looks like. But, like, let's talk now going into, like, the role of worship in the church, right? Yeah. Like for you, coming in, like what is, how does your brain work, or what do you when you come in on a Sunday, like what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you, or what are you processing? And as far as like getting ready for the worship, and I mean, it's all for, I would say our house, it's really about just the presence of the Lord. Yeah. And so how do you prepare for like a Sunday as a worship leader? I
constantly have the question in my mind of, Lord, what do you want to hear today? What do you want us to sing today? I very much feel the weight of, the songs that we choose as a team to sing that particular Sunday morning affects what 200 plus other people are going to be singing that morning. And we're putting words in their mouth to communicate to the Lord in that moment. And so I very much want to know, Lord, what do you want to hear? What do you want your people to sing this morning? And what do you want it to look like? I also feel like worship is, it's a flow. Like it's it says that the angels sing continually. There's always worship going on before the throne that never stops. So it's this continual flow of worship. And then as we come and gather in these corporate worship moments, it's like we get to jump in that river and in that flow of what's happening all the time as a corporate body. And so I want to jump in that flow, and I want to, lead to the best of my ability, lead the people into those moments with the Lord. And, like I said, use those songs as connection points. That's why, like, you can have worship that is so many different styles. You've got, your traditional hymns. You've got all the way to your charismatic, wild kind of worship, to your spontaneous worship that just happens on the fly, to all kinds of things. And it's like, that's why in whatever style that you are in, you can find the Lord in any of those styles. Like you can connect with the Lord no matter what song is being presented. It's just a tool, to connect with. And, which I teach that in songwriting too. It's the same sort of responsibility of like, hey, whatever words you're choosing to craft your song, those are the words you're putting in these people's mouths to sing to the Lord. Yeah. And it's a really powerful thing, and a really, privileged, thing to be able to do. And so when I'm preparing, I'm thinking of these things. Also on a practical level, I can't tell you how many times, like, we rotate singers on our worship team. Because we have more singers than we do spots. And so it works out well. Everybody kind of gets to take a break, and we rotate the singers on a schedule. So I'll look at the schedule and see, okay, who's singing tomorrow and who's singing Wednesday, whatever. And because there's certain people that really can lead certain songs well. It's almost like they just carry the song. And I'll think, oh, I wonder if this person is singing because I'm really feeling this song, or vice versa. Who's singing? Oh, she's singing. Okay. And she really carries this song. Yeah, that really feels like a fit for today. And so it'll be like a super practical thing that will, cause me to make a certain decision about song selection. And it ends up matching up perfectly with what Pastor Tim has, or a prophetic word that's given, or whatever. And I think so much of it is just the whole crux of the thing is like the posture of your heart, and this position of, Lord, I want to lay down any sort of agenda that I've put together out of my own ambition, my own anything, any little piece of anything in me that is not you and doesn't line up with you. I always want to say no to that. I mean, that's always my prayer. I say no to that, and I say yes to you, and change what needs to be changed.
Being able to adapt, because one thing about here is you have to adapt.
Yes.
On the Pastor fly. Tim loves to say, hey, there's this old song, can y'all sing that? And then you immediately, it's like, okay.
Or it'd always be a joke of being, sings, can you sing Obadiah chapter 2, please?
All
the time. And which used to like really terrify me, and now it doesn't so much anymore. I still get the like, what is this supposed to sound like, Lord? But that's kind of where my, feeling is now, of like, okay, Lord, what is this supposed to sound like? But yeah, we are very spontaneous. We're very on the fly. Things change all the time. We can think we make a final decision on song selection, and then we start our set, and there'll be so many times we only sing the very first song. And either like the Lord will speak something to my heart of, no, we got to go here instead. And we have practical things of a talkback mic where I can talk just to the team, and, iPads, we can, change the songs on the fly like that. That makes it easy. But we would still do that even without those things. When we used to use paper and we didn't have any mics like that, we would still, you just roll with it. Like, hey, I'm going here, follow, And so musicians have to be okay with that and be, capable of doing that. And they are. And it's,
there's I work with our youth, and they have a team. And so, as you know, but there's like this two stream thing. One is like, are you skilled at it to play? Yeah. Like, are you technically good? Are you skilled? Right. And that's where I don't have much knowledge. I can play my 6 chords on a guitar. But then the other part is the flow. Yeah. Can you just flow? Yeah. And so, when we first started, we got skilled and we did it. But that can get robotic. Right. And so, but it's the flow, when you're able to just flow and have those moments, and that's where you're really opening up a lot of the space for the Lord. Now, as you get better at your skill, you flow even in your skill.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can see, especially when our team was starting out a lot, they were very robotic, and they would stay just in the technical. We're just going to do the song, and they were so focused on the song that you're not really focused on what's the atmosphere we're creating as much. And when you're starting out, but then you go to the other side, and it's a lot of flow.
Yeah.
And so they've incorporated more flow into that, where you are, you can lose yourself in a moment and completely mess everything up because you get out of the technical. You start playing the wrong, on the wrong beat, or you know this better than anyone, but explain that, because I remember a church I worked with years and years and years ago. The worship pastor was, he could worship. He would get up there and he would worship and bring everybody in with him, right?
Yeah.
But, he says, but I got to be careful, because if I let myself go too far, then I'm gone.
Yeah.
He goes, and then it can mess everything up.
Yeah.
And so what's a balance there with a team, especially because it becomes a lot more challenging, because you're not just entering in, but you're trying to enter in with, however 7, 8, 9 people are with you on the team, plus the couple hundred that are in the room. So what's the balance there?
Yeah. The goal as a team is always to function together.
Yeah.
We use the phrase a lot that we pass the ball one to the other. Like, hey, okay, who's got the ball right now? Like, hey, I feel like our Adam, like, who plays cello, like, hey, he's okay. I'm gonna toss the ball to him, and he's gonna carry it, or it's gonna go back to one of the singers who's got a prophetic song. And so the whole goal is that you're working together as a team in these spontaneous moments. As a leader, you can't forget that you're trying to lead all the people who are worshiping with you into that moment. Otherwise, like you said, it becomes sort of like show is the best word I can think of, but this thing where people disconnect, they disengage because this one person is having this magical moment with the Lord over here.
And no one else is with them.
No one else. And that's not the goal. That, which takes us back to the other point of personal worship and congregational worship. If you are starved for that personal worship time with the Lord, where you can just go off on a 30-minute prophetic song all by yourself for as long as you want, about any intimate thing you want to sing about, go for it. If you're starved for that, sometimes I feel like then when you're in that corporate setting, you just want to go there because you haven't had that connection with the Lord in personal time. And again, the corporate, the goal in those settings is that you're all going to this one place together corporately. And so you just can't forget that you're leading people. And there's a balance in that too, because as a worship leader, you're not being led by the people and what they want, and maybe we should, what do the people want, and it's not that kind of thing. You're being led by the Lord. But you can't forget about them. You can't close your eyes. That's another practical point that we try and really drill into our team is don't close your eyes for too long. I know sometimes it's like you need to, and I do, close my eyes because you just have to connect with the Lord, and you're trying to develop this prophetic song as you're singing it, and it helps to close your eyes. But I always tell them, like, it's like being underwater. Like please come up for air. Like, open your eyes and take a look around, check what's practical. Going on. Yeah, like, please keep your eyes open. Because we do a lot of hand signals, and so I'll throw hand signals, and it gets a little awkward when one person doesn't see the hand signal, and they're going to the bridge, and we're going to the chorus. And then you're trying to figure out who's following who and whatever. So keeping your eyes open is the biggest practical tip I can give for spontaneous worship, and doing that together as a team, fluidly, and doing that well. And you need to devote at least half of your brain to listening to the other team members that you're playing with. If you are only focused on what you are playing and what you are doing or what you are singing, you're not going to blend. You're not going to support each other. How can you? You're not even listening to what the guitar player's doing. And your busy little piano run is just stepping all over his toes, Yeah. Who has the ball here? Who's doing this? The goal is to support each other. We're here to lift each other up and be aware of what is the Lord doing? What sound needs to come forth right now? And how can I support that sound,
There's a lot of things that go on that most people on the audience don't realize when you're doing, when you're working together as a team, a worship team. I mean, it is way easier to have like 2 or 3 people doing a little set than it is 9 or whatever, because as the more people are added, unity becomes a little more challenging. Another thing that I know we do well here, because I've heard people on the outside even say this, is pastoring the worship team. There are some churches out there who will let anyone come on the worship team, and even if they're not a Christian, and play. Yeah. And so, but we don't do that. No. And we pastor that. Talk about that briefly.
Yes, I would love to. I say I'd love to because we didn't always used to be the way we are now. We were a little bit more just open door policy kind of thing, until just discovered that didn't really work too well, for us. And we needed some sort of process for bringing people on the team. And the main reason of that is this underlying principle that we all stress so much, and that is to know the people that labor among you. Yeah. Know those that you're in ministry with. And what that means is have a relationship with them. And relationship takes time to build. And if someone just started coming to church, like 2 weeks ago, and they're like, hey, I'm a great electric guitar player. Hey, I'm a great drummer. I want to join the worship team. Yeah. I've been coming here for 2 weeks. I'll be here next Sunday. Can I play? We say, not yet. Yeah. We need to get to know who you are first. You need to know who we are. It's important that you are very familiar with the vision of our house, the vision of our worship team, and where we're going. Do you know Pastor Tim? Do you know what we're called to do here as a church and a house? All that just takes time to discover and to build. And so we have an application process for joining the team now. And part of that process is that you have to be regularly attending our church for at least 3 months, just attending. And just for the reasons that I just stated, just to know the vision of the house. And so you can get to know the people who go here, you know. Then you need to attend at least a month's worth of our practices, which normally we meet weekly. Sometimes we cancel, so sometimes that takes longer than a month to accomplish your 4 practices that you need to attend. And that's for the purpose of getting to know. We literally have hundreds of songs in our song repertoire that we pull from at any random time. So there's no way you're going to hear all these songs during these 4 practices, but you're going to get an idea of the way we do things and be able to work out some of the technical kinks. We also have a book that we want you to read, which is the book Rooted.
It's a great book.
Happily do a plug for that book.
We use it in our school.
Banning Leapshire wrote it. He's the pastor of Jesus Culture. And it's just a fantastic book. It actually has nothing to do about worship and music and being in the worship department, industry, whatever, any of those words. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with embracing the Lord and trusting him in the process of your life. Yeah. And being willing to trust him in the places where you don't, maybe you're not where you want to be ultimately, but how can you trust the Lord in that and work with him in the process and not against him? Yeah. So great book, highly recommend. We ask you to read that book and then also do an interview, and we call it an interview. It should be a meeting. It should be the title of it, but with myself and with Pastor Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Pastor Jimmy is amazing. He is my supervisor, I guess is the right word maybe, and he helps me a lot with the pastoring aspect of the worship team. So we get to meet with the new people who are coming on board and just clarify any questions about vision, clarify anything about how the team works and what the requirements are and expectations are.
Y'all have a purity, like kind of a purity clause thing about, hey, what type of lifestyle you live in.
Yep, absolutely. We asked people to read 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and say, hey, and just ask them point blank, are you living your life according to these standards? Yeah. Yes or no?
Why is that important? I mean, explain it for the people listening.
It's in the Bible,
Yeah, that should be enough, right? But there are churches who, they don't really care as long as you can play an instrument and play it well. So why do we emphasize that, especially for the worship team?
It's healthy for you as an individual. And Absolutely. What I always like to tell people who come on the team is, hey, we care more about you as a person than we care about your talent and your gift and what you can provide for us. And if you're not in a good place, like the requirements of 1 Corinthians 6, he's not talking about if you want to join a worship team. He's just talking about living a Christian
Being
life.
a Christian.
Yeah. So if you're not living your life according to these standards, then the worship team comes second to let's figure out what's going on in your personal life. You know, how can we help you? We've had people answer no to that question, and, you know, they'll tell us what's going on, and we've been able to help them work through what's going on in their life, come to a healthy place, and come on the worship team. You know, and again, it's because we care more about who they are as a person.
Discipling them as a person.
Discipling them. We don't, you know, if
using them for their gift and their
absolutely. And we tell them, hey, if you're having a bad week, maybe something just crazy in your family life happened and you don't feel like you're in a healthy spot, but you're scheduled to play or sing on Sunday. If you don't feel like you're in a good place to do that, send a text, let us know, give us a call. It's okay. Everybody goes through that. We would rather you tell us, I'm not in a good headspace. I'm not in a good spiritual place right now. I don't think I need to play or sing. And we're not disappointed in that. We're like, hey, how can we help you? You know, that's okay if I don't have a drummer this Sunday, if I don't have a guitarist, if I don't have, you know, some singer or whatever. I don't care about that. Are you okay? Like, you know, so we try and put priority on the person and who they are. And like I said, it's about living, you know, Christian living. These are the standards that the Lord has set
for everyone,
for everybody
who's in the body.
Yeah, regardless of whether you want to be on the worship team or not.
Absolutely.
So,
and you know, I think your personal devotion as a worshiper rolls over into your corporate worship. Yeah. And so, if you're having an issue in some of these areas of your life and your personal devotion is lacking, I mean, it all rolls over and it can affect. And so,
absolutely, and especially since we go into spontaneous worship so much.
Yeah.
If you've got some serious issues that you need to process with the Lord, like, you know, in your own time, you don't want that sort of, you know,
coming up or coming out in a prophetic song.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it can really derail a corporate moment when it's like, hey, maybe what you're singing is not wrong at all. Maybe you need to sing that. It's just the wrong environment. Yeah. You need to be singing this at home.
In your closet.
In your closet, in your personal time, and process with the Lord. Yeah. And that's great. That's what needs to happen. David did that constantly in the Psalms. He's constantly processing, this is how I feel, and very honest with the Lord about where he's at, what he feels. Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's how it gets you from that place to the place where he's called you to be, which is, but I remember who you are. Yeah. I remember your faithfulness. You are steadfast, and I'm going to trust in you always, and all that. You know, you have to process through that, but you don't want to bring a whole corporate body into that moment. You know what I mean? Yeah, because it's just not healthy it's just the wrong environment.
It is. I mean, it's like you said, you know, that's personal, but there's corporate, and you can't be trying to have everybody come into your personal worship when there's a corporate responsibility as well. And so, I mean, these are all amazing insights and pointers for most people who, you know, they have no idea the inner workings of a worship team. Yeah. There's a lot that goes on, a lot of pastoring, a lot of just practice, flowing together, learning how to submit to one another, I'm sure. Yeah. You know, I got this great thing, and it's like, wait, but they're carrying it. And it's like, okay, yeah.
You just have to hold it.
It's not about me.
Yeah,
it's about what the Lord desires coming forth. So like, okay, so we're talking about our house worship, but like, what about like the worship scene in America right now? Yeah. Like, what's your hot take on that? Where are we at? Where are we at as a nation? Because I mean, the worship industry has become a massive machine in the U.S. and I mean, it's become big. So where are we at? Give us some wisdom here, Lindi.
Which I think some of that is not. I don't know, my personal view. I don't feel like all that is bad.
No.
Because there's a real excellence that has come on, you know, a lot of what's released. And what that does is it gets music played in places like Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A and places that are, you know, they'll play these albums because they're made with excellence. But they're singing truth. You know, they're singing about the Lord and I don't know. There's also, I feel like in that, like, so much lately has been in, you know, I don't know. I can't remember the words that you just said, but sort of this like industry sort of feel of it. And now I feel like you can kind of see a lot of the pulling back from that in certain pockets where it's now we're returning to this acoustic sort of feel,
Yeah.
living room style. Hey, just one-on-one with the Lord, or like it's a pressing into the personal worship with the Lord kind of thing. And it's still in a corporate setting, but it's less of the big sort of industrial, I don't know what the word is, but feel to it. And I think it's sort of this craving of the simplicity of Jesus again. And I feel like even like starting last year, I think I really noticed just this hunger for the simplicity of Jesus again. It's like it kind of cycles back around to, okay, let's not forget why we're here.
Yeah, Camila actually mentioned that the other week. She goes, a lot of the big songs that are coming out that are like, there's a difference between a song that's biblical and catchy and one that honestly is like, this one's inspired.
Yeah.
She's like, a lot of those inspired songs are Jesus, King Jesus, holy glory, and it is. It's like circling back around to that, and it's like, wow, we could just camp here. And there is a big pulling back from the me and I and me, and it's you and him, and so every once in a while, probably a good thing I don't have a Twitter account, but I was like, let's make a worship song that doesn't use you or me and my and I and
I know.
But there are places for that, but it's like that's not the season that you feel is coming into. It is all him, and so.
I know, choosing songs and listening to songs, and I get sent a lot of songs for ideas, for songs that we should learn, and I try and be real intentional of like, okay, what do you have for our house? And then that's always my go-to thing. Who's this song about? Is it about Jesus or is it about us? And now I've written songs that are about us.
Of course, go read the Psalms. There's I'm struggling.
Yeah.
There is that, but I think when it goes too far that way. I mean, look, we are a very self-focused culture right now.
Yeah.
There has to be the pullback to, it's not about me, it's about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you have to be fixed on Jesus.
Yeah.
And I always gravitate towards that, and it's always in my mind, songwriting. Now like I said, I've written a lot of songs that are process, come out of seasons of my life, even like the Watchmen song that we play all the time. Like that's a very who I am and who, type point of view. So it's not, I don't think everybody's songs that are that, point of view are bad either. I think it's all good.
No.
But you have to just don't lose sight.
Well, and it's like you said, I think
Lord.
the timing right now in the U.S. is you can feel the pullback to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can. I mean, it just is all pulling back to him, focusing on him. But I mean, I remember the songs that come out, the How He Loves Us, and My Defender, which was a few years back. I mean, that was a powerful song, and so. Yeah. I mean, so it doesn't mean that there's not a time and place for that. And like I said, Psalms, go look at how many times David is talking about him and who you are to me.
For sure.
But this season now is that very King Jesus.
Yeah.
It is the King Jesus season that we're in. And I think you hear that in a lot of worship teams coming out. Mm-hmm. So going on with that, who do you listen to? You listen to all of our music, all of our albums?
No, actually, surprisingly, I don't really listen to a lot of music. I do some. Now that I have little kids, I'll say I listen a lot more because I want the music in the house and I want them to hear. I really love, you mentioned Defender, I really love Rita Springer. Mm-hmm. I always have since I was a child. She is so real. She's so raw in the way that she formulates her lyrics, raw in like a good way. It's like just the right amount of, I don't know, the way she writes. I really love the way she writes. I love that album that Jeremy Riddle put out not too long ago. That his name is Jesus.
Room.
Yes,
oh gosh.
Yes. Which to me kind of like perfectly encompasses what I'm talking about. This returning to this very simple worship, simple but powerful worship of just worshiping Jesus. And I love a lot of what Stephanie Gretzinger has been releasing lately and saying is really great. And again, it just kind of flows in that same sort of vein.
No, her and Jeremy worked together for, a decade.
Yeah, they did.
So, I mean, they're kind of very similar DNA in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still listen to the Bethel stuff that comes out because when you think about big produced albums that sound really well with real excellence on them, I think of them. And I listen to their stuff all the time. I love it.
Yeah.
So-
Upper room? Are you upper room person?
I am. I need to be more. People will send me stuff. And they're like, listen to this upper room. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yes, everything that I've listened to from them, I really like. I really enjoy. I really love the old stuff too. So I like the 90s stuff.
Oh,
Give me like the
yeah.
Vineyard Worship, and the old Andy Park and and David Ruiz and the.
And sometimes like really old. I remember a year or so ago we had our youth team learn the Days of Elijah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, and it was
that whole
Anointed.
era.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I was like, this is
Yeah.
Anointed.
I don't know if you remember someone called Catherine Scott. She sang the song Breathe and the song Hungry. She had a whole album called Hungry. And that was one I listened to a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I loved her stuff completely. Misty Edwards. I
Misty
love her
Edwards?
Stuff.
Okay.
And
Rick
Yeah.
Pino? Do you ever get into
yes,
Rick Pino?
I
You
do
like Rick Pino?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do like him. His stuff is great. Laura Hackett Park. You listener, she's at IHOP.
So now you're throwing out names that I have no idea.
She's buddies with with Misty Edwards.
With
and
Misty
all them.
Edwards.
Yeah, you should search her. She has some great stuff. Really beautiful melodies. She sings the song Shalom that we sing here. at
Oh,
Christian Center. She wrote that
okay.
one. Yeah, I really love her stuff. And my kids will run around. Alexa, play songs by Laura Hackett Park.
Really?
Laura Hackett Park.
Wow.
Because I searched
I
for her
think
a
I'm
lot.
just amazed that your kids talk to Alexa and know how to.
Oh my
we
gosh,
don't
are
have
you
one, but I'm
kidding?
sure they would.
all day long. Play this song.
So those are who you listen to. Your kids. You said you get more music for them. So okay, here's the thing. So I'm sure my youth would want to know if you could, like right now, someone who's like, hey, they're a young worship person, they want to get into it. What is like the number one thing you would tell someone who wants to pursue worship? At like a musical level, not just, I think we all should pursue worship, but you know what I mean? Like
Right.
Not just to be on the stage, but like they feel that like, hey, I want to do this. Like, what is the number one thing you'd tell them?
Do it.
Do it. There you go.
Probably
Nike.
what people told me when I was that age, which is what you said earlier, pour your time into it while you have it.
Yeah.
While you can sit there and sing and worship for hours, do it. Because your life will change one day and it'll be different. And also get your hands on any materials that you can. And if there's a conference, if there's a school, if there's a gathering, a place where you can go to be at an event that is geared towards worship, where you get a lot of teaching and a lot of just, intense sort of being poured into moments, go do that. I did a lot of that when I was a teenager and young. I would go, I went to IHOP when I was little and did a worship thing with them and just a conference thing. But I went to any sort of worship conferences that I could, gatherings, and just to be in those worship moments that they have in the services, but to glean from the teaching. And they would, offer altar time, ministry time, get prayer and get poured into in that regard. But those things were really beneficial to me. I still do love going to those events. So go to the worship conferences, read what you can on worship. Listen, there's a lot of, like, Rita Springer has a podcast now. She does all the time.
Yeah, I saw her actually the other day.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot who will, who put out material like that. Oh my gosh, Ray Hughes. Go find Ray Hughes' website, sign up today for his teaching courses that he has, and go change your life. It's really great. I highly recommend him. He's fantastic. And his stuff is online now.
Wow.
It didn't used to be. Someone has put it online and got it all presentable. It's easy to listen to and just have playing while you're doing stuff. So highly recommend him. And spend your time. Do it. I remember songwriting as a teenager. I would songwrite because I loved it, and I had a whole binder of all my songs, like, perfectly written out. And I took time and effort to make it perfect. And I don't think a single person has ever heard any of those songs. And that was never even like the goal at all.
Yeah.
It was just
Your songs.
Yeah. I wanted to worship with those songs, and I wanted to, package them well and like have them, here and put the chords on them and all this stuff. and just because I love doing it and I love experiencing the Lord in that place. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of good tips, I think, that they can take. That personal devotion and just growing, going, pursuing who's doing it good. Go listen to them, go glean from them, go grow from them, and go get them to pray for you, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Well, Lindi, thank you so much for.
Yeah.
I have so many other questions I could ask, but I can't keep you here all day. You gotta get your kids.
I do.
But anyway,
Probably.
thank you so much for coming on and sharing
Yeah.
with us. And before we head out, could you just pray
Absolutely.
over the people who are watching?
Absolutely. Yeah. Lord, I just thank you for each person who is gathered, who is listening, who is watching. And I just speak your peace over them, first of all, from their head to their toes. God, I thank you that you are a God of peace, that you're a God of order, and that your presence is so near to us. I just thank you for each gift and each passion that you have put within the hearts of those listening today. And I just speak life over those passions and over those desires and the gifts and talents that you've put inside their heart. I just thank you for opening doors that need to be opened and closing doors that need to be closed. God, even as you carried me into discovering almost accidentally the passion of my life, God, I thank you that you order and direct our steps. And I just speak that over each person watching, whether they are called to worship in a musical way or they're called to something totally different. God, I thank you that you order and direct each step that we take, each conversation, each personal encounter. God, each yes and each no, God, that you orchestrate the days of our life. And I just thank you, God, just for each one of them. Like I said, that you just open the doors and close the doors according to your plan and what you have written for their life. And I just thank you, Lord, for your blood that covers us from our head to our toes and that was shed so that we could have access to your presence continually. So, Lord, I just speak a blessing over each person. And I thank you, Lord, just for what you've called and designed for them to do and to be. God, even just to be who you have created us to be. And Lord, we love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Lindi.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming and
thank
sharing
you.
your heart and everything and your experience.
Yeah.
Pure gold. Pure
Thank
gold.
you for having me.
And thank you guys for tuning in and watching today's episode. If you like this, make sure to give us that thumbs up, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next episode.